Honda Company earns around 2 crore rupees every minute. Today, they make bikes, cars, private jets, and even robots. But surprisingly, they all started with a poor boy who didn't even have a cycle in his childhood. The story begins in 1906. Soichiro Honda was born in a small town in Japan. His father was a blacksmith, and his mother was a seamstress. His financial condition was very bad. So bad that he couldn't even provide basic medical care to Soichiro's 5 siblings, and he lost them in his childhood. One way to get out of this condition was to study and work somewhere in the future. But unfortunately, Soichiro was also very weak in studies. But there was still one hope left, and that was machines. In his childhood, Soichiro used to go to a rice mill with his grandfather. The specialty of this mill was that a petrol-powered motor was used to work there, which was very rare at that time. The sound of that motor, the smoke coming out of it, and the smell of petrol seemed very fascinating to him. And seeing this motor, his passion for motors and machines developed. At the age of 11, something happened to Soichiro that gave a life-changing direction to his passion. He saw a car for the first time in his life. Soichiro was completely mesmerized by that car. As soon as he saw it, he started chasing it without thinking. When the car stopped a little far away, a little petrol leaked under it. He literally bent down, smelled the petrol, and put it in his hands. And at the same time, he decided that one day he would make his own car. Year 1922, Soichiro saw an ad in a magazine. There was a garage in Tokyo called Art Shokoi that was looking for workers. In those days, repairing cars in a garage was a dream job for Soichiro. That's why he applied for a job without delay. And luckily, he got hired too. He left his studies and left for Tokyo at the age of 14 in search of his goal. Soichiro was very happy. He was finally going to work on things for which he had been passionate for years, but the reality was something else. From the beginning, the owner of Art Shokoi put Soichiro in the work of cleaning and babysitting. Months passed, but he was not allowed to touch the cars. He was now losing hope. He thought of quitting his job and going home many times. But he only stopped because after this failure, he did not have the courage to face his parents. In 1923, a major earthquake hit Japan. The Great Kanto Earthquake. There was massive destruction throughout Japan, but surprisingly, this earthquake proved lucky for Soichiro. After the earthquake, most of Art Shokoi's mechanics returned to the village to repair their homes. Now, there were only Soichiro and one more employee left in the garage. That's why the owner had to put Soichiro in car repairing. Not only was he learning car repairing now, but he also got a chance to drive motorcycles and cars for testing. Everyone was surprised to see Soichiro's work. He soon became the best mechanic there, and he was promoted one by one. At the same time, the popularity of motorsports was increasing in Japan. That's why the owner of Art Shokoi asked Soichiro to assemble a racing car. Soichiro took the second-hand engine of the American Curtiss biplane and assembled a racing car using the body of an American car named Mitchell. This car was also named Curtiss. In the Japanese Motor Car Championship of 1924, this car took part and won the first position. In this race, Soichiro played the role of accompanying engineer. This was a special experience for Soichiro. After this, motorsports became a new obsession for Soichiro. But he had no idea that this obsession would prove life-threatening for him in the future. In 1928, Art Shokoi decided to open a branch in Soichiro's town of Hamamatsu. On a partnership basis, he made Soichiro the in charge of this store. The same Soichiro who was not even allowed to touch cars a few years ago. Everyone hoped that Soichiro's shop would become an instant success, but the opposite happened. This shop failed badly. Soichiro was only 21 years old, and no customer wanted to give the responsibility of their car to such a young boy. That's why customers didn't come to their garage. To stop the garage from closing, Soichiro needed to find a solution soon. He observed that other garages often failed to repair a car, or they made it impossible to repair the car. In such cases, Soichiro was the only one who guaranteed to repair those cars. And he actually repaired them. Because of this, he developed a strong reputation in the market. In the next few years, his shop grew very fast. In 1931, when he was 25 years old, he was earning a profit of 1,000 yen every month, and he also made a team of 50 people. During this time, Honda not only started assembling race cars again, but also took part in racing tournaments. By 1936, he won many races and started seeing his future career in motorsports, but then he had a terrible tragedy. But before moving ahead, I want to tell you about something that can make you rich. All the videos I have made on successful entrepreneurs, all of them have one thing in common. They all make 5 sacrifices in their life that make them rich. If you also want to know about these 5 sacrifices, then I will recommend you 5 sacrifices to become rich bite. This and all other bites are available on Cuckoo FM in Hindi. But what are these bites? Bites are basically an amazing solution for people like us, who cannot take out time to read books due to their busy schedule. By listening to Bites, you can cover the key learnings of the entire book in just 15 minutes. The narration of Bites is also very smooth. You can listen to it while walking in the morning, while eating, or before going to sleep. Listen fast and grow fast. In the last few months, these 3 bites of Cuckoo FM have added a lot of value in my life. That's why I would recommend that you also check out Bites. And if you are not a subscriber of Cuckoo FM, then you can use my discount code Shivanshu50 and claim 50% off for the first month. And you can access Cuckoo FM for only rupees 49 instead of rupees 99. You can access Cuckoo FM. I have put the Cuckoo FM link in the description and pinned comment. Now let's come back to the story of Honda. In July 1936, during racing, his car had a major accident. When Soichiro opened his eyes in the hospital, he was feeling acute pain all over his body. His face was badly injured. The left shoulder was dislocated, and the wrist was fractured. Sadly, Honda had no option but to leave racing forever. It took him 18 months to recover, and during this time, he decided to start manufacturing automobile parts. He was now going to manufacture piston rings. Piston rings are an important component in cars, and it was in high demand at that time. He gave the responsibility of the garage to his employees. And in 1937, he established a company called Tokai Seikai. He hired 50 new employees and bought many expensive machines. He had no experience of making piston rings, so his family and friends warned him against this business. But Soichiro did not listen, said that if I see something only once, I can make it. I can build anything if I see it just once. He worked day and night with his workers in the factory. Many months passed, and his savings started running out. Ultimately, he had to sell his wife's jewelry to keep the factory running. But even after all this, he failed to make a proper piston ring. Finally, Soichiro realized that he did not have sufficient knowledge to make a proper piston ring. That's why, at the age of 31, he took admission as a special student to study metallurgy at Hamamatsu High School. he applied for his learnings in the factory. And finally, in November 1937, he made an acceptable piston ring. In the next 2 years, he was not only supplying piston rings to Toyota and other companies, but he also started making parts and machineries for the Navy. By the 1940s, he had set up a massive plant, and his business was growing very fast. But then, a major twist comes in the story. It was the time of World War II, and Japan and America were fighting each other. During the war, one day, American fighter jets bombed from the sky and badly damaged Soichiro's plant. They were recovering from this incident that in 1945 there was a major earthquake in the Hamamatsu area, and their plant was completely destroyed. By the end of the war, their years of hard work and their country had both been destroyed. They had come back to zero. Soichiro sold some of his company's assets for 450,000 yen and took a break from work. During this time, he got a generator from the Japanese army, which the army used to run its wireless radios. After examining the engine, Soichiro had an idea that set the foundation of today's Honda company. Actually, there was a shortage of fuel after the war, due to which its price increased a lot. That's why most people had to travel by cycle everywhere. Soichiro's idea was to motorize this cycle. For this work, he started the Honda Technical Research Institute in 1946. By using his skills, he modified this military engine and fitted it in cycles. Ultimately, it became an affordable motorcycle, and this became an instant success. But there were two problems. First, they had only 500 military engines left, but there was a lot of demand. Second, military engines also run on petrol, and petrol was very expensive. To solve these problems, Soichiro designed his own engine and started making motorcycles using it. The special thing about these motorcycles was that they didn't need 100% petrol to run. These motorcycles could run on the fuel made from the resin and petrol of the pine tree roots. This is why Soichiro's Jugadu motorcycles sold well. After this success, Soichiro dreamed of making a proper motorcycle, and to accomplish this, he established the Honda Motor Company. And just a year later, in 1949, he made his first complete motorcycle. He named it Dream. But unfortunately, this motorcycle failed in the market. Dream motorcycle. Speed and style were very good, but it was equally heavy and expensive, because of which it was not suitable for common Japanese men. After this failure, Soichiro decided to make a perfect motorcycle for the middle class. The biggest problem was that the engines that generate more power were bigger and heavier, because of which the whole bike became heavy. That's why, in 1952, Soichiro designed an engine called Cub, which was quite small in size but was very powerful. This innovation was a huge achievement at that time, and that's why he also got the Blue Ribbon Award of Japan. The engine was made, and now it was time to make a motorcycle. He traveled the world, met many experts, and understood motorcycle design deeply. And finally, in 1958, he launched his revolutionary two-wheeler, the Super Cub. Super Cub was an affordable and highly efficient motorcycle. Its biggest feature was that literally anyone could ride it. That's why, as soon as it was launched, it almost instantly killed the competition in Japan. By the early 1960s, Honda had become #1 in the Japanese market. Along with that, they were exporting lakhs of motorcycles to neighboring countries every year, but the biggest market in the world was yet to be captured, and that market was America. At that time, the reputation of motorcycles in America was very bad. The people there believed that motorcycles were only used by criminals and biker gangs. To change this image, they advertised their motorcycles in prestigious and popular magazines like Time, Life, and Look. But they didn't use the word motorcycle in any ad. Honda wanted the decent people of America to adopt their bikes. That's why they strategically chose the tagline of their ads. Their tagline was, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda." In this ad, they showed common people like housewives, working professionals, and students riding Honda. This marketing strategy was so successful that by 1968, Honda sold 10 lakh motorcycles in America, and by 1973, they captured 43% of the market share. Honda was on a roll. They were launching new and improved models one after the other. And in the 1960s, they had become the world's largest motorcycle brand. But Soichiro's childhood dream was still incomplete. It was time to make his own cars. In the 1960s, there were already companies like Toyota, Nissan, and Suzuki in Japan that were ruling the car market. The competition was very stiff. That's why everyone stopped Soichiro from entering car manufacturing. But Soichiro had already made a decision. He invested a lot of time and money and launched his first four-wheeler in 1963. But his first four-wheeler was not a car. It was a pickup truck called T360. Unfortunately, this truck was a commercial failure. Honda's start was not good, but he did not give up. He was successful in the motorcycle market when he made a motorcycle for a common man. Similarly, in 1967, he launched the Honda N360 for a common Japanese family. It was a spacious and high-mileage car, but its USP was its price. The N360 was around 25% cheaper than its competitors. That's why it disrupted the Japanese market as soon as it was launched. Japan had already been successful, but it still had to make a global impact with its four-wheeler. In the 1970s, Honda spotted a big opportunity. At that time, there was an oil crisis in the world, because of which fuel was very expensive. At the same time, the US government was very concerned about the pollution caused by automobiles. That's why they imposed strict regulations on automobile companies through the Clean Air Act. That means now they have to modify their engines to reduce pollution. After this regulation, all car companies hired lawyers and filed cases against the US government. But on the other hand, Honda hired better engineers instead of lawyers and started working on improving its engine. In the next few years, Honda launched the compound vortex-controlled combustion engine, in short, CVCC engine. It was a major breakthrough in the automobile world. This engine was phenomenal, not only according to pollution standards, but it was also fuel efficient, and no other company's engine was around it. Honda launched Honda Civic with this engine in 1975. This car was 100% satisfying the requirements of both the customers and and as expected, it shook the American car market. Honda Civic later became one of the most popular cars in the world, and its new models are still sold in the market. After this success, there was no looking back. Honda then launched models like Honda Accord and Honda City, which successfully targeted upscale customer segments. Finally, Soichiro Honda made such cars that fascinated the whole world. The big dream of a small boy from Japan was now fulfilled. Soichiro Honda said that success is 99% failure. We are all afraid of failure, but Soichiro Honda's life story proves that failure is a crucial part of anyone's journey. Every failure is an opportunity to learn, to improve, and ultimately to succeed.